The phone call shattered my peace, but not as much as my nephew's casual cruelty. He called me a worthwhile investment, a stepping stone to my inheritance. He underestimated an old woman who'd spent a lifetime fighting for justice. His lesson in greed would be unforgettable, delivered with feline precision. My nephew called me a worthwhile investment. He'll love my cat's inheritance. The silence in this house, the one David and I filled with 4 decades of laughter, arguments over politics, and the smell of roasting chicken, is its most constant resident now. At 72, a retired immigration lawyer, I've learned to coexist with it. It's a quiet shaped by memory, every creak of the floorboards a faint echo of my late husband's footsteps. My only living, breathing counterpoint to the stillness was Solomon, my Maine Coon, a 20-pound anchor of furry, unconditional affection. He was currently a rumbling weight on my lap, the guardian of my quiet afternoons. The phone's shrill ring sliced through the peace, startling us both. Solomon's ears twitched, and he lifted his head, blinking his great green eyes at me as if to ask, who dares? I glanced at the screen. Joel Asterisk, my late sister's only son. A familiar, complicated knot tightened in my chest. Hope, stubbornly, always came first, a flicker of desire for genuine connection. It was immediately followed by a wave of weary resignation. "Aunt Helen, thank God you picked up," he began, his voice a practiced blend of urgency and charm that he likely used to sell overpriced condos. "I'm in a real bind here. Quick question for you. I have a high-value client, a very important one, looking into an EB-5 investment visa. There's a bit of a snag with the source of funds documentation, and I was thinking." I listened, the phone cool against my ear, my gaze drifting to the window. The garden David had so lovingly tended was beginning to show signs of spring. I had just gotten over a bout of influenza that had left me feeling frail and utterly alone for a week. I'd texted Joel to cancel our standing Sunday coffee, explaining I was quite ill. He had replied with a thumbs-up emoji. He spoke for 10 uninterrupted minutes, his words a torrent of legal jargon and real estate desperation. My mind, a well-oiled machine even in retirement, automatically sorted through statutes and precedents, formulating a solution. It was a professional habit, but it was also a family one, the role I had been assigned. So if they can prove the gift wasn't intended to circumvent the regulations, it should be fine, right? He finished, breathless. "Correct, provided the gift affidavit is structured properly," I said, my voice even. "The key is demonstrating a clear, pre-existing intent, unrelated to the visa application." "That's brilliant, Aunt Helen. Absolutely brilliant. You're a lifesaver," he gushed, a brief pause. "Gotta run, big meeting, talk soon." The line went dead. The silence rushed back in, but it felt different now, heavier, colder. He never asked if I had recovered. He never asked how I was feeling. The multi-million-dollar loophole was the only thing that mattered. I, his loving aunt, was simply a free consultation. I stroked Solomon's soft fur, the rhythmic purr a small comfort. "He's just busy," I told myself, the same tired excuse. "He's my sister's boy." But the words felt thinner today, more transparent. The cat on my lap felt like the only solid truth in a world of increasingly hollow connections. The casual inquiries soon morphed into a campaign. Joel began bringing his girlfriend, Tiffany, on his Sunday visits. Tiffany, a woman who seemed permanently sculpted into a pose of ambitious striving, had eyes that didn't just see a room. They appraised it. She would glide through my living room, trailing a scent of expensive perfume, her manicured fingers ghosting over the mahogany sideboard. "Oh, Helen, this house has such incredible bones," she'd say, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt acidic. "A little modernization, some open-plan living, and the value would just skyrocket." Joel would chuckle, draping an arm around her. "Now, Tiff, don't go redecorating Aunt Helen's home in your head." But he'd catch my eye with a look that said, "Isn't she a firecracker?" The questions about my finances started subtly, couched in concern. "Aunt Helen, with the market being so volatile, I just hope you're well diversified," Joel would say, stirring his coffee. Then, more directly, "A friend of mine, his mother passed without a clear will, and it was a nightmare for the family. It just got me thinking, I hope you have all your affairs in order." It would give me such peace of mind to know you're protected. Each time, I'd offer a placid, non-committal smile and change the subject. But a cold dread was beginning to coil in my gut. I was a lawyer. I had spent my life reading the fine print, both on paper and in people. I saw the avarice in Tiffany's eyes, the impatience simmering beneath Joel's feigned affection. Yet I clung to denial. He was my sister's son. He was all I had left. So I told myself I was being cynical, a lonely old woman projecting her fears. The breaking point arrived on a placid Sunday afternoon in late October. The air was crisp, and I'd been in the garden, tending to David's beloved roses one last time before winter. I came inside, my hands still smelling of earth and thorns, intending to make a cup of tea. Joel was in the living room, his back to the hallway, on the phone, his voice low and conspiratorial. He thought I was still outside. "Just be patient, babe," he was saying, and I froze. His tone was one I'd never heard before, stripped of all warmth. It was the voice of a predator discussing his mark. "I'm telling you," her lawyer friend let it slip to a colleague. "Her total assets are at least $2.5 million. The house alone is a gold mine in this market. We just have to keep playing the part of the dutiful kids for a little while longer. It'll all be ours soon enough." A wave of nausea washed over me. I leaned against the wall, my breath catching in my throat. But the final blow was yet to come. He let out a weary, contemptuous sigh. "God, dealing with the old woman and her stupid cat is such a waste of my time. But you have to admit," he chuckled, a dry, rasping sound, "it's a worthwhile investment. The old woman and her stupid cat." The words struck me with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just the greed. It was the utter contempt. The reduction of my entire existence, my love for my sister, my affection for him, my quiet life with my loyal companion, to a transaction. An investment. In that moment, the fragile tapestry of family I had so desperately tried to hold together disintegrated into dust. The love didn't just die. It revealed itself to have been a ghost all along. I stood there, silent, in the hallway of the home David and I had built, and felt the chill of the grave. The heartbreak was a physical sensation, a sharp, cold shard lodging itself in my chest. For a full day, I moved through my house like a ghost, the echo of Joel's words replaying in a torturous loop. The grief was profound, not just for the nephew I had lost, but for the one I now realized had never truly existed. But by the second morning, something shifted. The sorrow began to recede, replaced by a cold, clarifying anger. The kind of anger that doesn't scream but strategizes. I had been a fool, yes, but I was not a weak one. I was Helen Castillo, and I had spent 40 years navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the law. It was time to use my skills to protect myself. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry or rage. Instead, I made an appointment. Not with my usual estate planner, but with Marcus Thorne, a man I'd faced in court twice and respected immensely for his ruthless precision. He was the sharpest probate lawyer in the city. Marcus's office was a sleek, modern affair of glass and steel, a world away from my comfortable, book-filled home. He listened intently as I laid out the situation, his expression unreadable. I didn't spare myself, detailing my own willful blindness, Joel's escalating avarice, and the final, brutal phone call. When I finished, he leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. "So, Helen," he said, a glint in his eye, "what do you want to do? Do you want to cut him out? Leave him $1. I have a few particularly creative and insulting ways to do that." "No," I said, a slow, determined smile spreading across my face for the first time in days. "I want to do something more theatrical. I want him to feel the loss, not just of the money, but of the certainty. I want him to experience the public humiliation of his own greed." The plan bloomed in my mind, fully formed, a beautiful and terrible flower. We would draft 2 documents. The first was my real, ironclad, and legally binding last will and testament. In it, I directed the entirety of my estate, the house, the stocks, the savings, every penny of the $2.5 million, to establish a charitable trust. It would be called the Castillo Davis Fund for Refugee Advocacy, in honor of both myself and my late husband, who had been the son of refugees. Its sole purpose would be to provide free, top-tier legal aid to asylum seekers, the very people I had dedicated my life to helping. My legacy would be one of justice, not of rewarding a parasite. The second document was a work of legal fiction, a masterpiece of plausible absurdity. It was a decoy will, drafted with all the requisite formalities to look utterly authentic. This document would be the centerpiece of my Christmas revenge. In it, I, Helen Castillo, of sound mind and body, would bequeath my entire worldly fortune to the one being who had shown me unwavering loyalty and affection. My cat, Solomon. We even included a clause establishing a trust with an annual stipend of $100,000, managed by a third party, for his grooming, veterinary care, organic salmon diet, and general feline enrichment. Marcus's grin, as we drafted the details, was positively predatory. He was enjoying this as much as I was. Christmas Eve arrived, cloaked in a deceptive blanket of festive cheer. I had insisted on hosting, and Joel and Tiffany arrived bearing an ostentatiously large poinsettia and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They moved through my home with a new air of proprietary confidence, as if they were already measuring for drapes. Tiffany complimented my cooking with exaggerated zeal, while Joel kept my wine glass perpetually full, patting my hand and calling me his favorite person in the world. The performance was so flawless, so utterly shameless, it was almost impressive. I played my part, the slightly frail but grateful matriarch, soaking in their counterfeit affection. After dinner, as we sat by the fireplace with coffee, I cleared my throat. "I have one more gift," I announced, my voice steady. "It's not something you can unwrap exactly. It's more of a promise, a piece of future security for all of us." I saw the flicker of triumphant greed pass between them. This was it, the moment they had been investing in. From a manila envelope on the mantelpiece, I produced a document, thick and bound with a blue ribbon. It was the decoy will. I put on my reading glasses, letting the silence in the room stretch and hum with their anticipation. "This is a draft of my updated will," I began, my voice resonating with practiced solemnity. "I wanted to share its core provision with you both tonight, as you are my only family. It felt right to do it at Christmas." Joel leaned forward, his face a mask of pious concern. Tiffany placed a hand on his arm, her posture radiating success. "I, Helen Castillo, being of sound mind and disposing memory," I read, my eyes scanning the formal text, "do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." I paused, looking over my glasses at them. It goes on with the usual legal boilerplate, but here is the primary bequest. Article 3. I took a slow, deliberate breath. "I give, devise, and bequeath my entire estate, both real and personal property, of whatever kind and wherever situated, to my loyal and constant companion, my beloved cat, Solomon." The silence that followed was absolute. It was as if the air had solidified. Joel's smile froze, cracking at the edges. Tiffany's perfectly made-up face went slack, her jaw literally dropping. I continued, my voice unwavering, savoring every syllable. "Furthermore, I direct my executor to establish the Solomon Castillo Trust, to be funded with an annual stipend of $100,000 for his proper care. These funds shall be used for his dietary needs, specifically wild-caught salmon and organic poultry, for his veterinary and dental care by a board-certified specialist, and for his general well-being and entertainment, including but not limited to a dedicated human companion whose duties will be to engage him in at least 2 hours of stimulating play daily." Joel made a choking sound, a strangled gasp. "What?" he finally sputtered, his voice cracking. "Aunt Helen, is this a joke? Have you lost your mind?" Tiffany's face had transformed from pristine white to a blotchy, furious red. $100,000 for a asterisk cat, she shrieked, all pretense of sweetness gone. Joel shot to his feet, his face contorted with a rage so pure it was almost primal. "You can't be serious. You'd leave everything to a goddamn animal over your own family. After everything I've done for you." I slowly lowered the document, folded my glasses, and placed them on the table beside me. I met his furious gaze with a calm that felt like a glacier. "I haven't lost my mind, Joel," I said, my voice quiet but carrying the weight of finality. "On the contrary. I've finally found it. I'm clearer than I have been in years. I finally heard what you really think of me. That I am the old woman. That dealing with me is a waste of time, but a worthwhile investment. His face went pale. He knew. That will, I gestured to the papers on the table, is a fake. It's a work of fiction I created just for you. I wanted you to have a taste of what it feels like to have your most cherished hope, the one you've been banking on, turn to ash in your mouth. I stood up, feeling taller than I had in years. My real will has already been signed, witnessed, and filed with Marcus Thorne. My entire estate, the house you were planning to gut, the money you were counting on, is going into a charitable trust to provide legal aid for refugees. Your inheritance, Joel, it's this moment, this precise moment of understanding. You get nothing. Not a dollar, not a photograph, not another minute of my time. The aftermath was an explosion of pure, unfiltered avarice. Joel's carefully constructed facade of the loving nephew shattered into a million pieces. He was no longer the charming real estate agent. He was a cornered animal. "You're insane," he screamed, his voice echoing in the suddenly cavernous living room. "She's senile. Tiffany, she's lost it. We can contest this. We can prove she's not mentally competent." But Tiffany wasn't looking at him with solidarity. She was looking at him with the cold, hard eyes of a speculator whose prize investment had just been declared worthless. The partnership, built on the shared dream of my money, dissolved before my very eyes. "We asterisk," she spat, turning on him with venom. "There is no we, Joel. I wasted a year of my life listening to your brilliant plan, playing nice with this crazy cat lady. You assured me this was a sure thing." "It was. How was I supposed to know she was listening?" He shot back, his desperation mounting. "That's your problem." Tiffany snatched her purse from the sofa. "I'm done. Don't call me." She stormed out of the house, slamming the front door so hard that a pair of porcelain birds on the mantelpiece rattled. Left alone, Joel's fury collapsed into a pathetic, pleading mess. He sank onto the ottoman, his head in his hands. "Aunt Helen, please," he whimpered, the tears of a thwarted child welling in his eyes. "I didn't mean it. I was just stressed. You know how much I love you." It was a disgusting, transparent performance, and I felt nothing but a profound sense of release. The old, familiar ache of wanting to believe him was gone, cauterized by the truth. "No, Joel," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "You don't love me. You love what you thought I could give you. There's a difference." The days that followed were a predictable barrage. First came the angry, threatening voicemails. Then came the long, rambling texts filled with manufactured remorse and nostalgic appeals to my sister's memory. Finally, there were the tearful messages, begging for forgiveness, promising he would change. I listened to none of them. I read none of them. I simply located his contact in my phone, pressed the block button, and felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. The old power dynamic, the needy nephew and the accommodating aunt, was obliterated. By refusing to engage, I had ended the game. He had no one to manipulate, no emotional buttons to push. I was no longer a character in his drama. I was the author of my own. The silence in the house returned, but it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't the sound of loneliness. It was the sound of peace. It was the sound of a border finally, blessedly, secured. The silence bloomed into a quiet spring. I didn't sell the house. To do so would have felt like a concession, as if Joel's greed had successfully tainted the memories David and I had built within these walls. Instead, I reclaimed it. The guest room, which had always been kept in a state of hopeful readiness for family that never truly came, was transformed. I brought in my old mahogany desk from storage, lined the walls with my law books, and installed a state-of-the-art computer. I was now the pro bono senior advisor for the Castillo Davis Fund for Refugee Advocacy. 3 days a week, I would sit in that sunny room, Solomon purring on a nearby chair, and offer guidance to young, passionate lawyers fighting the same battles I once had. My decades of experience, the knowledge Joel had tried to exploit for profit, was now a shield for the vulnerable. It had found its most worthy purpose. I no longer started at the sound of the phone, no longer felt that pang of anxious hope. My calls were now scheduled Zooms with bright-eyed attorneys from Tucson or legal aid workers in El Paso. We didn't talk about real estate values. We talked about human rights. We didn't discuss my will. We discussed the futures of families fleeing persecution. This afternoon, I was sitting in my favorite armchair, a report from the fund open on my lap. It detailed the case of a young journalist from Eritrea who had been granted asylum, a particularly complex case I had helped strategize. Solomon, ever my loyal companion, was a warm, heavy weight across my knees, his purr a gentle engine of contentment. The sunlight streamed through the clean windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. For the first time in a very long time, my life felt entirely my own. I had not only reclaimed my dignity, I had transmuted a legacy of pain into a legacy of hope. And as I read the final lines of the report, a genuine, unburdened smile spread across my face. It was the smile of a woman who was finally, completely, free. Thank you for listening to this story. If you've ever had to fight to reclaim your own peace and dignity, I hope this brought you a sense of validation and strength. Don't forget to follow for more stories, and please feel free to share your own experiences in the comments below. Remember, your story matters and you are not alone.